live now.
20 seconds.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you right now.
Tell me when you get to sign.
All right, I've got 5:30, so we will start the pre-meeting. Here we go. Approval of minutes for May 2nd, 6 p.m. and also special call meeting March 2nd and March 12th at 8 a.m. Do I need to separate those?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, do we have Ms. Hill and Mr. Art on?
Christy is online.
Okay.
Chuck, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We have all.
Set public hearings, Resolution 2090, set public hearing on abatement of unsafe condition at 2618 Pool Avenue Southwest to be held on May 4th. Ordinance number 204400, set public hearing on pre-zoning request 1348-20 to be held on May 4th at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204401, set public hearing on rezoning request 1349-20 to be held on May 4th at 6 p.m.
At 2618 Pool Avenue, Southwest, to be held on
Puts in
May
the way.
4th.
Ordinance number 204402, set public hearing on pre-zoning request 1350-20
I'm having a real
to be
hard
held
time
on
hearing
May 4th at
Paige.
6 p.m. Ordinance number 2044.
On here?
She said something, I might not be able to hear you.
Here? Go ahead, Paige.
Ordinance number 204403, set public hearing on
There we go.
rezoning request 1351-20 to be held on May 4th at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204404, set public hearing for rezoning 1352-20 to be held on May 4th at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204405, set public hearing on rezoning request 1353-20 to be held on May 4th, 6 p.m. Public hearings for this evening, ordinance number 204394, rezoning request number 1344-20. Public hearing was set on 3/2/20. Discussion? Any
Yeah,
questions?
I'm going to say this, that,
Excuse me? There have been no changes to that.
No, we're not
she
there yet.
she asked for discussion.
Oh.
And I've had this discussion, and I'm sure that all of you know this, with Herman the entire weekend, and today. I'm sorry.
That's their
Okay.
meeting, their,
Based on the fact that the Open Meeting Act calls for any deliberation to be conducted or action taken during the meeting, based even on what the governor has added to the Open Meetings Act, that the governmental body statutory authority that is necessary to respond to COVID-19 or necessary to perform essential minimum functions of the governmental body. Now, public hearings are, as far as these rezonings go, there's no way really for us to have interaction with the public. Other entities around the state have even called our legal municipalities, and they've said that the interaction would possibly be incomplete because the people who might have comment might be able to, they even asked if it could be done by email or by letter, and the thing was with it would possibly restrict open dialogue. So I don't know that we can continue with public hearings when the public's not able to be involved with this, or limited involvement in this.
Well, what we're going to do, Mr. Jackson, is when we get to each of our headings, as far as setting public hearings, well, we don't have to vote on those. Public hearings, we will have a vote of the council, because if you read also, the question is, and the league has said this to back this up, that this is a decision that will be, it is up to the government officials and case by case depending on the nature of the governing body, which is the council. So if the council chooses in a majority vote to go forward with these, then we will proceed onward. You can certainly...
That's true, it does say that. But what it, prior to that, when it talks about essential governmental functions, it said it gives, not only Alabama, but the state, every state around the nation basically that's gone to this, lists that the, for example, one of these, for the purpose of essential governmental functions means all services provided by the state of any municipal, township, county, subdivision, or agency of government needed to ensure the continuing operation of government agencies or to provide for support of health, safety, and welfare of the public, and including contractors performing essential functions. But it goes on to say that within those guidelines, that the governmental body can choose to decide which of those that they want to use. But so it's not
We
just
can,
a
and we
broad.
will take a vote on
It's
that.
not just a broad.
We'll take a vote
Let
on
me
that.
make, and I kind of agree with Mr. Jackson's point, but there's two other elements to this that I think are very, very necessary to be determined here. You've heard me say before that just because we have the power doesn't mean we should always use the power. And I know at least two of these, either on the setting of them or the actual public hearings, there's going to be people who have some thought and dialogue on it, and they will not be here tonight.
But they have access to the same number that everyone has.
But
Again, Charles and Mr. Jackson, we're going to take a vote of the council.
Well, let me finish where I was going
Okay.
with this. The fact is that we're discouraging public input, and it might be technically legal, I'm not sure about that yet, but it's certainly antagonizing the public, doing it at a time when they should not or cannot be here. And there's also financial aspects to these things too, expenses that we're going to incur as a government body during right in the middle of a COVID-19 emergency, and we still don't know the ramifications of that yet. We could be 6 months down the road and find out this cost us $15 to $30 million. And at that point, some of the stuff should have been scaled back and decided some priorities to it. So if it's not an emergency item, an essential item that's got to be done, like paying our bills and whatnot, I really think it should be postponed.
Again, we will take a vote at each voting of the 5 council members. We have 2 on the phone, which again has been covered in the governor's declaration. I think y'all all have that proclamation, excuse me.
We do, but that's not what it says, though. It's not what it
Okay,
says.
and you can both
And I guess I'm
state your
bothered by the
point.
fact that our city attorney has made it seem as if this is a decision of the council. If each council around our state decided to do this subjectively and do it in their own way, then it's likely that each council throughout our state could be doing it differently. And if that's the case, that each council can do it differently than the other council, why even have a law?
Each council does it differently now, as far as
No,
going
as far
forward.
as this law, the Open Meetings Act goes.
Okay, the Open Meetings Act, I agree with you, but
I
it
mean,
has been changed for this instance that
The
we're
only
in.
thing that changes in this instance is the fact that the chair or the person who sets a meeting can cancel or postpone a meeting. That's the only thing that actually changed.
Well, I will give you my view on it, the hearings. You would then we are already looking at an extreme amount of local businesses that have been affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
If we do this, then you're going to limit people in their jobs. So we're going to impact, Mr. Kirby, further what we've already done, which we haven't done, the virus has. We will further impact with the stoppage of these projects. They have investors that are investing in it. We are not investing in anything in these, Mr. Kirby. These are projects that investors are coming in to.
Is our labor free?
We aren't doing anything.
Is our labor free?
But I guess we're missing the whole point.
We
though.
aren't doing anything. These are all investors coming into that property to build houses.
We don't inspect them, we don't supervise them, we don't meet with anybody.
But that, again,
We
that's
do,
neither
but it
here.
is actually in the best interest of the city. I would think that we would want to actually encourage more economic stimulation, since we know, all three of us.
I agree with that.
we have people
We
that.
need to encourage economic stimulation, and we need to stimulate economic growth at all in any way that we possibly can. That's not what this says. And this was set up before COVID-19. It was set up for an emergency situation such as this one that we're in now. But it's like we can pick and choose which parts of this we want to use. That's the whole thing. And again, that comes from our city attorney, and I have serious concern about our attorney, who will say that, in my opinion, he's saying what he thinks is appeasing to who he perceives is a majority of the council.
We have 2 attorneys for the city. I do believe Chip has also looked at this and agrees with Herman.
And the reason I do is because I don't think that the definition in the proclamation, now granted, this last proclamation just expanded it to other members, but it also allowed people to participate from home. Reading this one and two proclamations ago, talking about the necessary, essential, minimum, the reason I think we're called upon and why the process we came up with is for y'all to vote is because y'all know what is essential to the operation of Decatur. People in Montgomery may know. They can't say you can only do these categories, because in some city, there could be something that's essential for that city that's not essential in general for other cities. And it's the same thing, it's not a great analogy, but it's close. The surplus and property that's not good, that's not for use for the city anymore. They don't make a list of what you can or can't. The council makes a determination on that based on our unique situation. And that's why it would have been nice if the proclamation had gone into greater detail other than this definition, but absent that specific definition, I think that the legal department can't decide. We can make recommendations or we can talk about it, but the five of y'all have to decide what's essential and what's not essential. If you don't think it's essential, you can't then buy this. You cannot go forward with it.
I agree.
But if you say if y'all decide it is essential, then by this you can go.
But I think, Chip, the problem with that is that is so subjective that we could actually choose to say that arbitrary things are essential. And I mean, if we just decided we're going to say that whatever arbitrary measure we want to move forward is essential, and we get a majority vote to do that, then it becomes, quote, essential, when it's not necessarily an essential minimal function. And the state of Alabama even went farther than many states, well, most states do, and said minimum essential function, not just essential functions, because the other states that you pull up, they list essential functions and give guidelines and say that cities and counties can work within those guidelines to determine what's essential for them. But the state of Alabama took it a step further and said minimal essential. So it even tightened that noose even tighter. So
But in
we
they
want
didn't define what that means.
Well, I was
The
listening.
only people that can are the five of y'all determining if it's essential.
And I was listening to Chip's explanation, and again, I saw a very subjective nature of it. My main point was this on that. If we're going to err, we should err on the side of caution.
Unfortunately, some of these have time restraints on them, and as you both know, government cannot stop during even crises like this. That's why you have the minimum.
This doesn't
budget.
call for a stoppage of government. This calls for a
It
more
does
strict.
actually, these have time limits, and it
But
does.
what happens is that we're not barred from coming in here and having a quorum and having a voting council. But this allows us to do it by teleconference. And if we're going to do it by teleconference, there are certain things that we can and cannot vote on.
And that's why we'll take a vote.
Well, and
So,
again, it boils down to the
your,
council.
You're saying you're going to take a vote as to whether or not you can or cannot vote on it?
Yes, on
That's-
every heading, public hearings, resolutions, ordinances. The only one that we have been, or I have been informed by both attorneys would be the, let's see, ordinance number 204399, model airplane lease at the landfill. Now, I don't know why we would not vote on that tonight. I don't know that we've had any opposition
Because it's
to
not
that.
essential.
That's fine, and we don't have to vote on that. That is the only one that was recommended was not essential to vote on, and I certainly can wait on that. But we will.
If you're going to
take
do the
that.
others, then I have no problem doing the airplane thing. If you're not going to hold up on anything else, no reason to hold up on the airplane contract.
We can certainly talk about that when we get there. And we will go over these. Ordinance number 204395, rezoning request 1345-20. Public hearing was set on 3/2/20. Ordinance number 204396, rezoning request 1346-20. Public hearing was set on 4/6/20 at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204397, rezoning request 1347-20. Public hearing set on 3/2/20. Resolution 20, number 52, abatement of unsafe conditions at 1039 East Moulton Street Southeast. So this E should be under resolutions, is that correct, Stacy? And not under ordinances? Or is that a public, that is a public hearing?
Because
Okay.
we're having a public hearing.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Resolutions for this evening, Resolution 2053, abatement of unsafe conditions at 406 7th Avenue Southwest. Any comments?
One question, E above and A there, why are they under two different sections? Has one already been one already been set?
They've all been set. They all have the date they were set.
All right, well, they were both set at the same time. I don't guess it's that important, but either they should both be under resolutions or both be under public
That
hearings,
was
one or
my
the other.
question, that was my
Wait
question.
a minute, which one?
E,
E and A.
E and
The
A.
E-
Are we talking about the rezonings or the
The
resolution?
rezoning request.
no, we're talking about unsafe conditions.
Abatements.
Okay, A under
Okay.
resolutions.
7A and 8,
you are-
I mean 7E and 8A.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
So E should be a resolution, correct?
But it's still a public
It
hearing,
is.
as she said.
It's still actually having the public hearing.
So should 8A should be up above there in
But
public
A
hearings?
is actually, no, it should be up above where set public hearing. No, it's actually a public hearing. Yes, it should be.
So it should be a
Correct.
public hearing for this
You are
evening?
correct.
Okay.
It should be above.
A should be F.
Gotcha,
A should be
thank you.
F.
I think
I am
that's the
so
only one.
sorry.
I just wanted to come to grips with why one would be in one place and one in the other, that's all.
Thank you, Viv. We'll do
So,
that. Resolution.
rezoning
No, it's
1344 should be,
No, that's not it. You're fine.
Resolution
Okay.
2091, approve a budget amendment to repair bridge at the Decatur Morgan landfill in the amount not to exceed $19,000. Funding source the landfill fund. Questions? Resolution 2092, authorize the mayor and legal department to pursue condemnation of property for Shady Grove Lane widening. Questions?
That's one of those, again, I personally believe it should be put off because the courts are not even going to be able to hear it for a while. By the time the courts are back open, we should be able to act on this and send it to the court, where people who have one thought on it one way or the other can be heard.
Carl, are you on the line?
Yes, it is. Carl?
That from Dick Page?
Well, let's just add Chip's here. Chip,
What was the question?
this was started in 2017, is that not correct? The end of 2017?
Before that, it's been going a while.
So several years, so this is not something that has just happened, so these residents have had time.
What
to-
this does is authorize us to move forward. We do have to wait till I can physically get into the courthouse to file it. That, whenever that's gonna be, what this just does, and what it has already done, the fact that we've moved this for 2 of the 5 that were still outstanding have reached out trying to get it resolved, get their cases resolved, which we had not been able to do for over a year. I think authorizing the action would move that further on.
And Carl, this is for Phase 2 of Shady Grove Lane down from Austin High School, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And this is largely due to safety issues, making a sidewalk or a path for kids if they want to walk home, is that correct? So it's really safety oriented?
Yes, ma'am, we'll extend the bike path or pedestrian way from where we stopped it in the first phase all the way to Old Moulton. It'll also allow us to add a little bit more of the 3-lane going north and then improve the 2-lane section the rest of the way.
Thank you, Carl. Any other questions?
You do
Yes.
have someone calling in.
Okay. Is Mr. Land, I would assume? Okay. Resolution 2093, authorize the mayor to execute interim consultant agreement with Wally Terry. Questions? 90, not to exceed 90 days, correct?
Correct.
I have been told by a source that has researched that law that says that contract can be enacted anytime inside 365 days.
That would be a legal question.
My understanding is that it's 90 days from the
Retirement date.
From the retirement date, and I hadn't researched that to see if it could be later. It makes logical sense, but the law and logic rarely.
And there's another detail. We at times have employees who do give us their retirement announcement, and then something happens and makes them retract that announcement. So I have a couple of different concerns about this, with the time frame being to spend that money exactly during the middle of the COVID-19 crisis. And on that,
Well,
and not,
let
on
me,
that-
let me share this. The law is very clear that we can contract with a department director after 90 days after their date of retirement. There is no exception for that. Now, there can be, the date of retirement obviously can be moved, but once the date of retirement comes, then we can only contract for 90 days after that date. And that's what this does. Right now, of course, obviously, if it changes, then we would change. But I don't know, but that's very clear with a person that's in the department head level position, that you can only contract with them for 90 days after their last day on the job.
And Herman,
Last day of employment.
Herman, I shared that with you this morning, that yeah, that date of his retirement could change, and the fact that I don't see this as a minimal essential function of our city is based on the fact that retirement date can change. And if it changes, say he moved his retirement date back 3 months, then that kind of demonstrates to us that there's flexibility there, and it does not fall into the guidelines of a minimal essential function of our city. So
Well,
I think that he could
that's
move
a-
that
that's-
back, and
that's
then
the
even at the
personal-
end of that, after he moved that back, we could go 90 days worth of consulting with him then if we chose to.
Maybe Mr. Cherry has
Yeah.
plans for him to retire, so
Mr.
that
Cherry
would be his
has-
choice.
He might, but that
I'm
would be
not-
his choice.
Yeah, that
But
would be
that's
his
the whole
choice.
point, is that because it's a choice, it's not a minimal essential function of the city.
I disagree, but
Well,
we'll
I'm sure
continue
you
on. Resolution 2095, approve the emergency paid sick leave, family medical leave policy. Rochelle, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, any changes?
The only change is to sub-item G on page 2, where we clarified some language to references within the document. The document that was originally submitted wasn't very clear, so we cleared that up, and then everything else remains the same.
What was that pertaining to?
Page 2, item G. That was pertaining to eligibility for expanded family medical leave in addition to emergency paid sick leave.
And that was the 3/4 pay, and your suggestion was to pay the entire salary, is that correct?
Well, it's 2/3, the requirement at minimum is 2/3 pay. We're recommending 100% pay.
And this is specific to the emergency situation?
It is.
Yes, this is specific to issues directly related to COVID.
Thank you.
F, Resolution 2096, approve emergency engine repair for the 850K crawler dozer in the amount not to exceed $50,000. Wanda, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Anything changed on that or the bridge repair?
No, nothing's changed in regards to the repair to the dozer.
Okay. Anything on the bridge repair from earlier?
I'm sorry, this bridge repair. No, nothing's changed.
Okay. Any questions for Wanda? Ordinance 4399, this is the one that Herman and I assume Chip would recommend that would not, but we can certainly vote on that one too. We will vote on it. Ordinance first reading, ordinance number 204406, annexations including voting districts and precincts. Of course, this is date sensitive. And we did table the dog tethering. We can revisit that and also have a public meeting if council so desires. Alrighty. See you in a few minutes for the meeting.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
bring up something just very briefly, since we're between a pre-meeting and meeting? Last work session, I mentioned that the various people who get appropriations, you could consider DDRA, library, tourism, and other people, have received no guidance from us at all. And I think it's because we're in new territory and we don't understand where we're going. And so they would normally be working on their budgets right now, but theoretically, many of them have a legal barrier to meeting right now. So the question is, what is our expectation? Are we going to carry over past this COVID-19 with continuing resolutions until we can put a new budget together and give them a grace period after the emergency over? I mean, just some kind of guidelines so they know how to operate, because right now, some of those organizations should be putting their budgets together.
They can do that like we're doing it now. I don't know, if they're stopping their essential.
I don't think they think the way that we do that they can do it remotely. They think they need to meet, because they've been given guidelines. For example, they can't even vote by email, for example, which I agree with.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think anyone has the magic date on when this COVID-19 will be over. So it would just be my thought you would want to be talking about it now, but that would be up to them. Herman or Chip, do you have any suggestions? Or wait, or John. John, are you on there?
I'm
John
here.
Andruski? Did you hear Mr. Kirby's question?
Usually, yes, I did. Usually, with the approach, we're talking June, July. So, I mean, depending on your outlook, there should be time.
John, when you said June, July, you were pretty much meaning for us to look at it, right?
No, sir. That's one of the last things we do in the budget process. We generally have the hearings when people come in and present in August. So usually the letters go out at the beginning of June with a deadline of somewhere late June, early July, depending on the circumstances.
Well, and I don't expect this COVID-19 thing to be past us by July, but many of these organizations I'm talking about, it's normal that March, April, May, they're entrenched in working their budgets up. And right now, many of them feel like they cannot meet. And I'm not going to determine for them what their technological aids ought to be in behalf of meeting.
Well, maybe which agency you think maybe needs to call John or the legal department and view their concerns? Or
Well, I could say it's my intent to leverage the technology to get our budget done on time.
And I'll say, I know the Princess Board, they're meeting via teleconference. I know DDRA is as well, Christie's.
And I'm not saying any one of them can't, but just because we have the technological infrastructure in place doesn't mean that everybody else has that technological infrastructure in place.
Well, again, if they have concerns, I would say they need to call either legal or John and ask them where they think they should be.
All right?
All right, thanks. We'll see you in 4 minutes.
that mask will absorb all the perspiration too.
Oh, no, I haven't.
And Mr.
Okay, I'm gonna set my phone up here, in here, and then here.
Should I look like I'm robbing the place?
Paige, what I would like to hear on each item, now paying bills is essential, obviously the repair of the bridge is essential, but on all those other items, if we're gonna make a case for what's essential, I'm gonna wanna know what is it on that item that makes it essential.
That's fine. Okay. Here we go. We're ready to go. This evening, Mr. Wally Terry will be saying our invocation as well as our pledge. Thank you, Wally.
We ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight in our weakness, and we come to you in our fear, and we come to you with trust. For you alone are our hope. We ask for wisdom for our doctors, grace and peace to our caregivers, and healing to those who are ill. In Jesus Christ's holy name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of
United States of America, to the republic for which I stand.
One nation, under God, indivisible.
Thank you, Wally. Roll call, please.
Well, you're welcome. The feedback on the phone and when y'all say it is kind of confusing. I'm sorry.
No worries, no
I do
worries.
think there's a little time delay causing confusion in there.
Roll call.
Debbie,
Present.
Art,
Here.
Jackson,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Kirby.
Here.
And what we'll do will be similar to what we did last Monday night. When we get to an issue, we will take one at a time. I will call the two present council members, then I'll get to Mr. Ard and Mrs. Hill for any questions they may have. Approval of minutes, City Council regular meeting March 2nd, 2020 at 6 p.m. Motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Kirby and a second by Mrs. Hill. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Biddy,
Aye.
Art,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Abstain. Oh, I'm sorry, aye. Aye on that one, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
City Council regular meeting March 2nd, 2020 at 6 p.m. has been approved 5-0. City Council special called meeting March 12th, 2020 at 8 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kirby, second by Mrs. Hill. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Biddy,
Aye.
Art,
Aye.
Jackson,
I'll abstain on that one.
Hill,
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
City Council special call meeting March 12th at 8 a.m. is approved 4-0 with one abstention. Setting public hearings this evening, what we will do is we will take a vote on each one of these categories to see if the council feels they are central. So we will now take a vote on public hearings.
Excuse me.
Yes,
We're just setting these.
we are, but just for
In a future date,
housekeeping.
in a future date process, we might be beyond this, so do we really need to vote to see if we need to set it at this particular?
I would like to see that, so we're all,
What's Herman's advice on this?
Herman,
Yes.
would you like, you and I had spoken about this, do you think each heading we should vote to continue and think they're essential?
They are, if you're gonna consider them, I'm not sure why there's feedback. Yes, if you're gonna, they're essential if you're gonna set them for, your meeting in May, so, and all you're doing is setting them. That doesn't mean that they'll come to pass, but we will publish them in that, so I believe these are all essential and certainly, minimal in their nature.
Thank you, Herman. So we will be taking a vote now on whether to set these public hearings.
Are we setting them, Herman, based on the if we were voting on them tonight, or are we setting them not knowing what the future's gonna hold? I mean, are we voting on the fact that we're okay with voting them at a future date? I mean, because that's what I'm...
I think we're voting for them to be held on May 4th, 2020. Is that correct, Herman?
Well, actually, what you're setting them, and that's right, you're just setting them for May the 4th. That's what you're voting on, is to hold these hearings on May the 4th.
And we're
What you're
also,
doing.
and Herman, if you think about it, we're setting a public hearing in a scenario where we almost know the public cannot be there.
The public could be at your meeting tonight. There's nothing that prohibits other than, the items that concern of moving and all that. But they certainly are entitled to be present at your meetings, and certainly they're entitled to, in fact, what we're doing is really more than what we normally have done in the past, and that's, they can either email or call in, which they couldn't do otherwise, so it adds an additional, but if they wish to be present, they can certainly come. I understand why they would choose not to do that, but there's nothing that prevents them from being present at the hearings.
Except their perception of their safety.
And Herman, I do think that Ken Smith and Lori Line will differ an opinion with you on that as far as being able to hold a public hearing like that.
They were the league, correct?
Yes.
I didn't think you adhered to the league. That's what we said a couple of weeks ago.
I didn't say I didn't agree. I said they're an advisory body. And apparently Herman adheres to them with his heart and soul.
I'd like to call question, please.
Thank you, Mr. R. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Hill. We have a motion and a second to call the question. We are calling the question of to consider these for May 4th to continue on. Stacy?
Bibby?
Aye.
Ard?
Aye.
Jackson?
Not knowing what the future holds, I'll say aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Kirby?
Abstain.
We are proceeding forward with a vote of 4-0 and 1 abstention. Resolution 2090 set public hearing on abatement of unsafe conditions at 2618 Pool Avenue Southwest to be held on May 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204400 set public hearing on pre-zoning request 1348-20 to be held on May 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204401 set public hearing on rezoning request 1349-20 to be held on May 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m.
Paige, quickie question for you. I'm guessing what I'm seeing at this point that the vote that was just held pertains to all these as being said.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Ordinance number 204402 set public hearing on pre-zoning request 1350-20 to be held on May 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204403 set public hearing on rezoning request 1351-20 to be held on May 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204404 set public hearing on rezoning request 1352-20 to be held on May 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Ordinance number 204405 set public hearing on rezoning request 1353-20 to be held on May 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. We are now going to hold a vote on public hearings for this evening. Same as before. Stacy? Oh, I'm sorry. Do we need a motion, please, and a second?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Ard and a second by Mrs. Hill. Roll call.
Bibby?
Aye.
Ard?
Aye.
Jackson?
No.
Hill?
Aye.
Kirby?
No.
To proceed forward for public hearings for this evening, vote of 3-2. Ordinance number 204394, rezoning request number 1344-20, public hearing set on 3/2/20. Karen?
Good evening, Karen Smith, City of Decatur Planning Department. This is a request to rezone .44 acres from M1 Light Manufacturing to B5 Central Business District. It is located at the northeast corner of Cherry Street and Railroad Street. And the recommendation from the Planning Commission is for approval on this request. It is in conformance with the future land use plan of urban core downtown and will allow them to do some residential development in the area, mixed density.
Thank you, Karen.
Are there any questions?
Let me get a motion first. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ard and a second by Mrs. Hill. Now discussion?
I'll just simply say that because this does not respond to COVID-19 or the necessary, things necessary to perform essential minimum functions of the governmental body, according to the Open Meetings Act, I will abstain on this.
This is Herman. Let me make sure that I want to make sure that these items that y'all are discussing, that y'all have determined that they meet the criteria of being essential and the minimum governmental function. That's what you've determined, I presume. So you don't have to do that every time, but I'm presuming that's what a majority of the council has decided, that each of these items that y'all are considering are essential minimum functions of your governing body.
We had a vote, Herman. It was 3-2 in the positive.
I just want to make sure that covers all the items that y'all are now discussing. I just want to make sure that. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Debbie?
Aye.
Art?
Yes.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. One moment. This being time and place for a public hearing, anyone from the public who would like to speak may speak now. Is there anyone on email or call-in? We'll give just a second.
I have received no additional comments on these.
Thank you, Karen. No public comment. We will consider this public hearing. Is that something?
Okay, yeah, I do
Okay.
have one.
Okay.
Crystal, she wants.
Crystal Brown?
Yes,
Mhm.
speak on 1349-20.
1344-20?
1349 is what she's got typed in here.
I bet that's.
Okay, well, that's on,
Setting.
we've already set that hearing.
Yeah.
That was set for May 4th at 6. So that's that's done.
Let's let her speak, see if it's 1344-20 that she'd like to
It
speak
is,
on. Okay.
the setting the public hearing is what she was referencing.
Okay, so she's fine?
She just said she wanted to speak, which.
I
Well,
don't,
let's let her speak then.
I don't see 1344-20.
I think she just I think 1344-20.
1344 or 1349?
Okay.
Oh, I see where it's item C under
Under
6.
setting public hearings. Okay.
But which one are we doing?
Well, we're on the public hearing.
We're on ordinance number 2043-94.
And that's rezoning request 1344, but I thought I heard Stacy say that she wanted to talk about 1349.
Is that-
Was
Okay,
the setting public hearing. She needs to, what you guys have.
okay. We'll go back, and we'll tell her that. So we'll declare this public hearing closed, and we'll entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Ard and a second by Mrs. Hill. Roll call, please.
Bibby,
Aye.
Art,
Aye.
Jackson,
Abstain.
Hill,
Aye.
Kirby.
No.
Ordinance number 2043-94 has a vote of 3-1 and 1 abstention.
Do you know another email?
Okay, we'll give it a second to read it.
Yes, it is from Jamie Walter Reeves. He said he's an actively working realtor. It's imperative that we vote on the Morris development, allowing them to proceed with construction. As of last week alone, I had 5 homes under contract. We do not have enough homes on the market right now for the amount of buyers we have that are ready and willing to purchase. People are still moving into our area. There are multiple jobs that are essential. If the developments are not allowed to begin ASAP, we will yet again be behind the curve of other cities around us.
Okay.
We need new construction immediately. We can continue continue to make a decision depending on what is best for just a few, but what is best for our entire city and community.
Is that relative?
Okay, may I make a comment?
I think it's with all of these. Yes, go ahead, Karen.
Okay, the two requests that Mrs. Reeves is talking about are ordinance number 204396, which is rezoning 134620, and ordinance number 20-4396, which is rezoning request 1346 and 1347, which are the next two items. The item that we're talking about now is at the fairgrounds. It's 134520. And they're asking to rezone a 31-acre tract from Ag 2 agricultural to M1A expressway commercial. It is located south of Sim Street at the end of fairgrounds. It comes to you with a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission. About 2 months ago, you asked us to go back and work with the property owner to develop an addendum to his lot, and we have done that and are preparing to record that tomorrow.
Okay, Karen, let me go ahead and read that. Ordinance number 204395, rezoning request 134520, set public hearing on 3/2/20. This being the time and place.
I'm sorry.
No worries. This being the time and place for public hearing, if anyone would like to speak.
I have the first one.
Okay, on this one?
These-
Okay, go
these
ahead.
next three, so maybe we can do both, or if Blake, would you like to speak now? Okay. Go ahead.
With respect to the fairgrounds rezoning, this project has a building that's about to be constructed. Site plans have been submitted to the Planning Commission for consideration. There's a contract in place. There is an initial building out there that is under renovation currently. There is potential for a third and fourth building. And we really desire that you move forward with approving these rezonings, because if not, it is going to hold up essential businesses such as construction services, and real estate. This is in the April 3rd proclamation from the governor in section 2, in paragraph N, identifying construction services and real estate as essential. Also paragraph 2.0, code enforcement, also essential. In paragraph 2 and point Q, the continued operations of essential businesses or operations by government entities and companies that supply them are also essential. And it just seems to me that we're dying for revenue in the city, and we're asking for people to do things and invest their dollars. This is not investing city dollars. Anything that's done with respect to code enforcement or inspections is going to be something that's a fixed cost, and it's done remotely over the phone these days. So please ask that you would support this one and this 134520 rezoning. It is necessary to move forward. If we push this off, it could be pushed off for 4 or 5 months, and these projects will go away. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Anyone else that you have?
And who was that on the phone?
Blake McAnally.
And she did have the wrong number, so she's going to be, I gave her the number, she's waiting for
Okay.
her call.
If the public having a chance to speak on this, so declare this public hearing closed. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Ard and a second by Mrs. Hill. Any other discussion?
I'll simply say I heard what Blake said, and I sympathize, I understand with what he was saying, but this still does not conform to the guidelines that are set up in our Open Meetings Act, and I think that's the template that we have to follow, where we are not responding to COVID-19 and we're not performing essential minimum functions of our governmental body. So
I'm very sympathetic to this moving forward, and I won't vote against it, but I can't push that when we're putting other things as if the public can be here to address them when in fact they can't. But I wanted to address one thing he said. He said that inspections can be done remotely without visiting the site. I have a problem with that.
think the papers for the building, the
But this
application.
process is more than just papers. This is physically going out to the properties. And
They're doing it every day, Charles. That's why you have it out in front of the table. People are coming in and they're doing it.
I understand, but that doesn't mean there's no exposure. That's all I'm saying.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Billy?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Jackson?
Abstain.
Hill?
Aye.
Kirby?
Abstain.
Ordinance number 2043-95 is approved 3-0 with 2 abstentions. Ordinance number 2043-96, pre-zoning request number 1346-20, public hearing set on 4/6/20 at 6 p.m. Karen?
Okay. We're talking about rezoning request 1346. It is a request to pre-zone 91.9 acres to R3 single-family residential lots, or residential zone. It is located on the west side of Old River Road, north of Upper River Road. This is a subdivision, this part of this subdivision plat will have 67 single-family detached residential lots. It comes to you with a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission and the department. It is in conformance with our future land use plan of mixed residential, and we appreciate your time and listening. And this is the one that Mrs. Reeves had a comment about.
This being the time and place of public hearing, if anyone would like to speak on this ordinance. Did
We
you?
have Crystal Brown.
All right, Ms. Brown?
Go ahead, Crystal.
Okay. The Chamber's Crystal Brown with the Decatur Morgan County Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber's Residential Development Task Team, which is composed of a really diverse group of the business community, has been working really hard to recruit developers who are willing to invest in Decatur and to help us benefit from the unprecedented growth that we have experienced and continue to experience based on Jamie's comments that she made about the closings that she's had and had just this week. We are fortunate to have local developers who care about Decatur's future and are more than willing to construct well-planned development, offering new and existing residents first-class options. Impeding progress on this and other residential projects will significantly place us further behind in the ability to secure new residents. Many have opted already to move to some of our neighboring communities because of our lack of inventory and our options. And so it's just critical that we keep moving forward at this time. And again, Blake referenced our small businesses. We will halt their ability, contractors, real estate agents, attorneys, and others to continue to make a living and contribute to our local economy, further jeopardizing the future growth of our city. So I just, on behalf of the Chamber, I respectfully request that you continue to move forward on these residential development projects, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Any other comments from the public? No emails, no calls? All right, no, the public having a chance to speak on this matter, I declare this public hearing closed and will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hill, second by Mr. Ard, and discussion.
Just say again that, citing the Open Meetings Act, this is not responsive to COVID-19, nor is it necessary to perform the essential minimum functions of our governmental body. So I will abstain.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Bibby?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Jackson?
Abstain.
Kirby?
No.
Ordinance number 2043-96 is approved 3-1 with 1 abstention. Ordinance number 2043-97, pre-zoning request 1347-20, public hearing set on 3/2/20. Karen?
This is a pre-zoning request to pre-zone 5.25 acres to R6 single-family townhomes, which are semi-detached residential structures located on the west side of Old River Road, north of Upper River Road. They are currently showing 39 R6 lots on a plat. This reflects a reduction of approximately half of what they had originally proposed, which was around 70 lots. And we, the Planning Commission and the department both recommend approval for this request. It is in a future land use area known as mixed neighborhood, and this would allow for some mixed densities in this area. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
This being the time and place of a public hearing, if anyone from the public would like to speak.
We had Blake,
Blake McAnally, thank you.
Go ahead, Blake.
Thank you. Blake McAnally, P. Wright McAnally, 310 8th Avenue Northeast. With respect to this project, this pre-zoning is very important because it has several business decisions that will affect this development, the adjacent developments, the ability to catch the construction season. Again, construction is essential. The support services for it are essential. It's very likely that the site work contractor for a subdivision that's already been approved and under construction will use the same contractor and do Mass X over both of these properties. That decision cannot be made if this pre-zoning is not passed. It certainly is going to impact the ability to sell the property or market the lots, because the owners and developers are talking to home builders who potentially will come in and buy 10 lots, 15 lots, and if they cannot tell them when it will be built or when it's actually going to be available for them, they can't sell that. They can't sell anything. So postponing the construction of probably $2 million plus worth of investment, if this is not passed, is what we're talking about. And I'll go back to Mr. Kirby's question with respect to code enforcement. There are building departments all across the state that are using video chat, FaceTime, and other things to inspect projects and keep things moving without having to go on site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAnally. Anyone else say
You
something?
have an email from Kim Hallmark.
Okay.
Remax Platinum, and she said it is imperative that Decatur move forward on this project.
Thank you, Ms. Hallmark. Any others?
No.
With the public having a time to speak, I will declare this public hearing closed. We'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Orr, a second by Mrs. Hill. Discussion?
I know that there was significant debate about this multi-use ability to affect the surrounding community, and I don't know that the dust has settled on that. I don't know if I agree with the arguments that have occurred. But the fact is, I'm pretty sure that some of those people with opinions on that would show up at a public hearing if they didn't fear for their safety. We never know if anybody will ever show up, but I do think as government bodies, we have to give them the optimum opportunity to show up.
And again, this does not respond to the COVID-19, nor is it a necessary function of the essential minimum functions of the body, so I will abstain.
Mr. Kirby, I will answer your question about the public hearings. There have probably been approximately half a dozen public hearings that have been quite frequented by the residents. I happen to live in that neighborhood, so we've had many. The chamber has hosted one, the planning department has hosted several. I have hosted one as a representative of that district. So there have been plenty of people. There are 2 or 3 that are still upset, but they had the opportunity, like anyone else, to buy their property if they didn't want it to be residential homes. So.
May I make a comment?
You may.
We have also got the preliminary plat on this that went through the Planning Commission at the March meeting. We did receive one emailed comment from one of the adjacent property owners, and were able to at least answer her questions during that meeting. And they had to do with how many access points there would be and the impacts on the drainage.
Roll call, please.
Bibby.
Aye.
Hard.
Aye.
Jackson.
Abstain.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
No.
Ordinance number 204397 is passed with a vote of 3-1 with 1 abstention. Resolution number 2052, abatement of unsafe conditions at 1039 East Moulton Street Southeast. Public hearing set on 3/2/20. Mr. Lee.
Good afternoon or good evening. This is David Lee with the Community Development Department. I would just like to say that I appreciate the council's hesitance to support some of these public hearings, but I would like to say that our involvement in at least one of these was requested by the police department because illegal activity was going on in there. And we all know that in the past that in these unsafe buildings we've had rapes, assaults, illegal drug use and sales, and both of the owners of these properties are fully aware that these hearings are taking place tonight. So they've been notified and they are aware that these are taking place. So on the first one, 1039 East Moulton Street, y'all have our department's information, but building was condemned in November of 19. The owner is out of state in California. They've signed for their paperwork, but we've not been contacted by them. Their time to repair ran out in March. The building remains open and unsecure, and we've made all the notifications that we're required to make by law and then some, and the Community Development Department would recommend that the council authorize the demolition of this structure to eliminate this public nuisance.
This being the time and place of a public hearing, if anyone would like to speak on this condemned unsafe condition? No one from the public wanted to speak. I will declare this public hearing closed. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved. So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Kirby and a second by Mrs. Hill. Discussion?
David, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm presuming in your behalf that you would make a case that this is a serious public safety issue.
Yes, sir, I would. It's a building that's in extremely poor condition and it's open and unsecure, and I believe this is the one that the police actually requested our involvement on because of neighborhood complaints.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bibby.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
Resolution 2052 is approved with a vote of 5-0. Resolution 2053, Mr. Lee.
Yes, ma'am. This building was condemned back in November of 18, and it remains open and unsecure as well. Any and all notifications required by law and then some have been made. We've also been to municipal court on this, but we've not been able to move forward on some of those issues because the owner lives in a different town, and we would request that the council authorize the demolition of this structure as well, please.
This being the time and place of a public hearing, anyone in the public who'd like to speak on Resolution 2053? Stacey? Nothing? No one from the public wanting to speak. I will declare this public hearing closed. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jackson, second by Mr. Kirby. Discussion.
David, again, this is a public safety issue.
Yes, sir. In my opinion, it is.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bibby.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
Resolution 2053 is approved 5-0. We are now heading into the resolutions. We will now take a vote on if we would like to proceed as council to go in there into the resolutions. Are there any that we'd like to take out?
Yeah, we can take out B, E, and F.
Are you going to take them all individually based on that or what?
We will. We were going to
Yes,
take them all
please.
individually anyway, but Well, let's take a
I
vote.
make a motion, we go through them individually.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Ard is individually with a second from Mrs. Hill. Roll call, please.
Bibby.
Aye.
Ard.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
We proceed 5-0, that would pass. So we will go to Resolution 2091, approve a budget amendment to repair a bridge at Decatur Morgan Landfill in the amount not to exceed $19,000. Funding source is the landfill account. Wanda?
Good evening, Wanda Tyler, Recycling and Landfill. This is to make a repair to one of the access bridges at the landfill. It's repairing the joint at the that connects the landfill. That connects the bridge, and it's not to the. I don't have the amount in front of me. I apologize.
It's not to exceed 19,000.
Yes, I do believe it's 19.
So moved.
There are pictures in your packet as well. I have a motion by Mr. Ard. Do I have a second? Mr. Kirby, any discussion?
And Wanda, you did say that this was a safety issue for not only your employees, but the public as well, correct?
Right. Yeah, you can see by the pictures that we have some sort of jagged edges that have been created, which can cause some tire issues, punctures or whatever. But yes, it is a safety matter.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please. Yes.
You need to make clear if you're voting on whether or not to consider this or whether it's the actual vote.
We're voting on to consider this in a minute.
Chip, I think we'd already voted to take them all individually.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying, so
I
consider
understood
that
that
package.
motion was that you were deciding on each one individually, whether or not. to
So
vote
you're
on
essentially
it.
saying we need a double
We
vote.
have to vote on each one, whether or not to consider it. It's the way I understood the motion. If I misunderstood that.
Actually, Mr. Ard asked that we take them all individually. So, do we need to have a
Really,
vote
that's
first?
for someone to be taken.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, individually, that works for me. I'm good with that.
Okay, so we don't need to vote individually whether to take the vote. Is that what you're saying? You're good with taking a vote up, just straight up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
I'm going to make the same statement.
Roll
because
call,
I don't think it
please.
meets guidelines.
Roll call, please.
Bibby.
Aye.
Ard.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
Resolution 2091 is approved with a vote of 5-0. Resolution 2092 authorizes the mayor and legal department to pursue condemnation of property of Shady Grove Lane widening.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Ard and a second by Mrs. Hill. Mr. Chip is going to, do you want to address it? Anybody want to hear that? I think we had talked about it earlier, but go ahead.
We talked about it pretty much in depth next time. Nothing has changed since then, other than 2 of the 5 have reached out since then. One saying they wanted to go forward with the offer from before. One wanted to reopen negotiations. The one that wanted to reopen the negotiations, I believe, is Mr. Land, who has called in.
Well, I'm going to tell you, right now, he's not picking up his stuff. And he's just been trying the entire time.
Well, we have a motion by Mr. Ard, a second by Mr. Hill. We will give Mr. Land just a moment to speak if he would like.
Hey, do you want me to?
We can address
Well,
that.
we had the discussion, we've had an email exchange today. I can tell you what's going on with that.
Go ahead. Yeah, you can do it or I can do it, whichever.
Okay. Basically, what the issue is he says that because there were negotiations ongoing, and in his opinion, they never closed, that the city was negligent in carrying those out, and that he believes that then we cannot go forward at this stage because we had not finished negotiating. Our position is that this is an authorization to go forward. What he's raising is actually a defense that would be brought at the first and the second levels of hearing in the probate court. And factually, what happened it's been a year or more ago now, is that there was a settlement reached. We cut a check, called for a closing for him to come in, and he went up on his offer, and we said no, that this is what this is what we've agreed to. That went back and forth a couple of times, and he was told that it was just going in the condemnation stack.
We agreed months ago to have Mr., I'm sorry, his name is
Bradley
Bradley Wisner, to do our kind of work for this type of condemnation. So the council actually gave authority to him to do a negotiation.
He negotiated, and I negotiated after him, and we ran out of negotiation.
Gotcha. Any other discussion? Have a motion by Mr. Ard, a second by Mrs. Hill. Roll call, please.
Bibby.
Aye.
Ard.
Aye.
Jackson.
Abstain.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
No.
Resolution 2982 is approved 3-1 with one abstention. Resolution 2983 authorizes the mayor to execute interim consultant agreement with Wally Terry. I believe we covered this.
You do not have to vote to,
So moved.
you do not have to vote to whether you want,
Second.
whether it's essential.
We did at the top.
Okay, my understanding was, Mr. Ard wanted to vote on each one individually.
We are. He wanted to vote on each individual, and I asked Mr. Jackson if he was fine with that, and so we don't have to do a double vote every time.
Okay,
Again, Resolution 2983 authorizes the mayor to execute interim consultant agreement with Wally Terry. Is there a motion?
So moved. Motion.
I
Second.
think Christie did the original motion, Chuck seconded, I believe.
Okay, well, Mr. Ard, I have him as the motioner, and Ms. Hill's the seconder. So.
Second.
Thank
Second.
you. Yeah, we got it. Any other discussion on that?
Yeah,
think we have the 90
as I said
days.
earlier, I don't think that this bears a weight of course, it's not related to COVID-19, and it's not the essential minimum function of our governmental body. I do think that this is something, as you said earlier, is a decision that Wally's making, and if an individual is making a decision on their own behalf, and I don't have a problem with that, it does not bear the weight of a minimum essential function of our government. He's making that on his own.
I think that's been in for quite a while, his date.
It doesn't
Any other
matter, it can
discussion?
change.
Any other
change at any
discussion?
point.
Roll call, please.
Bibby.
Aye.
Ard.
Aye.
Jackson.
Abstain.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
Abstain.
Resolution 2093 is approved 3-0 with 2 abstentions. Resolution 2095 approved the emergency pay sick leave, emergency family medical leave policy. Rochelle.
Hi, these are policies to bring the city in alignment with the mandatory requirements defined under the Federal Act for Families First. Just summarizes the act, which is fairly lengthy, makes it easier to read for our employees. It establishes a temporary policy for the city for emergency sick leave for issues directly related to COVID. The COVID virus, it provides 10 additional paid sick days, and then it provides provision for expanding family medical leave for child care directly related to the COVID virus. The expanded family medical leave minimum is 2/3 of pay. We're recommending 100% of pay in all cases. The form, once we post the policy, we will include a request form for to review and ensure that the requests are made under the guidelines of the policy.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kirby, a second by Mr. Jackson. Any discussion?
And let me say that I think this is the right thing to do in general terms, but also let's not forget that this is one of the perks of working in the public sector, that most of the private sector, regardless of this federal Family Medical Leave Act, doesn't get this type of pay.
Any other discussion?
And I'll say that this does respond to COVID-19, so it's obvious that I will support this.
Roll call.
Bibby.
Aye.
Ard.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
Resolution 2095 is approved 5-0. Resolution number 2096, approve emergency engine repair for the 850K crawler dozer in the amount not to exceed $50,000. Wanda?
Yes, Wanda, landfill and recycling. Yes, we're asking you to approve a repair in the amount not to exceed $50,000. We had a fire in regards to this 850 crawler dozer, and as a result of some fine dust getting in the engine, it caught fire, and we are requesting that you approve this request to make these repairs.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kirby, a second by Mrs. Hill. We did look, insurance, the deductible is $50,000. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bibby?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Kirby?
Aye.
Resolution number 2096 is approved with a vote of 5-0. Ordinance number 2043-99, that will be revised. We can take a vote on that. Let's take a vote on the model airplane lease at the landfill, if we would like to consider that this evening, if we feel that is essential. Roll call, please.
Bibby?
Aye.
Art?
I'm sorry,
No.
there was a motion and second.
Sorry.
Oh, I thought we had it.
No, there was.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hill, second by Mr. Ard. Roll call.
Bibby?
Aye.
Art?
No.
Jackson?
No.
Hill?
Aye.
Kirby?
Abstain.
The ordinance number 2043-99 has failed, and I guess we will do that at a later date. I'm not sure when that lease expires. We will have ordinance first reading. We don't need to vote on that, I don't assume. Ordinance number 2044-06, annexations including voting districts and precincts. That actually has to take place. So, any other comments or questions?
No, ma'am.
Mayor? Did you have anything to add?
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Kirby. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you.